Thank you. Good afternoon. Welcome to Natural Resources, Agriculture, and Open Spaces Subcommittee. I'm your chair, Delegate Regina T. Boyce. We will be taking up one actual bill and then briefly talking about the other two bills. HB, now I forgot it all there. HB 812, that is the Tri-County bill. We are going to still gathering some information, but I understand that the Senate has moved that bill, and we are going to see what they do, follow their lead, and then make moves after that. It's same with Delegate Allen's Rooster bill, monitoring. Just for full disclosure, I think there is a thought that the amendments still don't bring down the fiscal note that's satisfactory for the Department of Agriculture. So and I understand the Senate has moved or is moving that bill. So we're going to watch to see what happens and comes over, and then hopefully address it after crossover. I wanted to have a quick discussion on Nick's Law, HB 770. I have sent something to the Chair of Judiciary, Clippinger, Chair Clippinger, to see if he can just quickly put eyes on it and give some thoughts about it. This bill probably should have been in that committee for them to look over. But I think in the meantime, we can re-review what the bill, what it does, and most importantly, if someone would like to make a motion after Patrick quickly goes through it, to at least adopt the Senate amendments onto the bill and hold the bill until we can get some more instruction about this bill. So, Patrick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, this is Nick's Law, as we've started to call it. It's the drunk boating bill. Drunk boating, as everyone knows, is illegal. And what the problem is that if you get a conviction for drunk boating, a judge by statute can, and often does, suspend you from, there's no boating licenses, but he can suspend your privileges to drive a boat for a year. I think it's up to a year. However, there is no way to track this. A natural resources police officer that catches you wouldn't know if you had your privileges suspended. So what this bill does to start with is it sets up a database between DNR and the judiciary, where the judiciary would notify DNR of any convictions for drunk boating, and DNR would note it in their database, and a natural resources police officer would have this information in his fingertips, whether it be in a vehicle or a vessel or whatever, and could know if this person was not authorized to be driving a boat. Now, there's an amendment on the bill because it turns out that the violation that person would be doing would be violating the court order, but there is no statute that prohibits that. So that's what the amendment is it puts in, an offense that a person may not drive a vessel when the person is, under a court order or suspended by a judge. And there's one problem. This is an amendment that came out of the Senate. That's why we don't have it here. But there's one problem with the amendment. For some reason, it says that for the penalty for the offense, it escalates, for first offense, second offense, third offense, and subsequent. And for some reason, it says that a previous violation for drunk driving or drunk boating would count as a previous offense for unlawfully driving a boat when you're suspended.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make sense to me because unlawful driving a boat is not drunk boating. It's not drunk driving. Right. And I brought this up to the JPR counsel, and he agreed. And they've had it on their voting list. And when they get to it, he's going to raise it, and I'm raising it here.
Okay. And hopefully raise it so they can make a correction, but I can also raise it with the hopefully the chair of judiciary, if he has thoughts about it, about how that changes. So just for the body, it essentially says that for the purpose of determining subsequent offender penalties for a violation of this action, a prior conviction under subsection A of this section of the transportation article shall be considered a prior conviction, to his point. So and so I'm not sure if we want to adopt the amendments up to that number 2 and to hold off, or adopt all of the amendments and then re-amend of the bill. Delegate Jacobs.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me ask you, because I don't have the bill right in front of me. How does it address drug use under the influence of drugs?
Oh,
It's got all of the same violations of drunken drug driving.
But that's in the bill?
That's in the current law.
Well, I mean, in this bill,
current law for boating.
it's covered in this bill? I didn't see it in there. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, that's a good question. Let's triple check this.
I'm looking at.
It is, hold on. No. I mean, it is impaired by any controlled dangerous substance as defined in 5-101 of the criminal law, unless the person is entitled to use a controlled dangerous substance under the laws of the state. Would that be it? I mean, but before that, it talks about alcohol, and then after that, it talks about impaired by any drug, combination of drugs, or combination of more than one drug and alcohol that a person cannot operate. So drugs is in.
See, that's the current law.
Previous law.
The very beginning of the bill.
Right.
And that's what's setting up what drunk boating is.
Right. But to his point, it's.
I'm a bit concerned because now that it's legal to smoke cannabis, last year, and is there a threshold? Is there something in there that, if you're impaired, is that covered?
Yeah, it should be. It's the same legal standards for drunk boating as they are for drunk driving. Drunken drug.
It covers controlled dangerous substances
Yes.
as well as
Yes.
alcohol.
In fact, if you'd like, I'll just read it to you real quick. This is the drunk boating statute. A person may not operate or attempt to operate a vessel while the person is under the influence of alcohol, is impaired by alcohol, is so far impaired by any drug, combination of drugs, or combination of one or more drugs and alcohol that the person cannot operate a vessel safely, or is impaired by any controlled dangerous substance as defined in the criminal article, unless the person is entitled to use the controlled dangerous substance under the laws of the state. And I think that's the exact same statutory standard as it is for drunk driving.
All right, thank you, Patrick.
Okay.
And any other questions, Delegate Jacobs, or? Thank you for bringing that up. Delegate Baker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess my question would be, if I'm out and I'm operating a boat, I get pulled over, I'm drunk, driving the boat, this will have no effect on my driver's license, correct?
I don't believe so. I'm not aware of any.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Although let me clarify that. This can be a prior offense, or a drunk driving but conviction can be a prior offense for this, for the purpose of penalties, sentencing, the like, if there's subsequent offender penalties. So if you have a DUI and you get pulled over for this, that DUI would be considered a first offense of drunk boating. So yes, it could have an effect on your driver's license that way.
Any other questions, Delegate Baker? No. Delegate, Dylan, and then Delegate, I thought I saw Alan, but maybe not.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Patrick, it can be a subsequent offense. So I think Patrick answered the last question. And then just to provide additional context, and it kind of connects to what we just discussed, the reason why the DNR proposed amendment copied in the language from the transportation article was just we copied all the other penalties, but DNR is fully comfortable with whatever the decision is. We do not have to reference back to those penalties or anything along those lines. So
Do you know if it's on the JPR voting list again today?
Okay.
I believe it is on the voting list.
So what I hear you saying, Dylan, is that it is you would leave it to our discretion, but according to Patrick, and I guess what I'm hearing from you is we probably really do need to seek some judiciary feedback regarding this, because we do want to make it stick, and we do want folks to know, if especially for a DNR officer is down on the water and he pulls somebody over on a boat, suspension, you know, they just don't know, and there's no we've got some good words here, but there is no real stick to hold these folks accountable. Or in some cases, you know, how do you, even in that case, how do you have somebody come in and kind of seize a boat because if it's suspended, they're not supposed to be on their boat? You know, how do you manage that?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that's I think I think that's spot on. I think more of the question lies in the second part of the proposed amendment that says, basically, if you're caught boating while your privilege has been revoked, then there's a question: should that reference back to a DUI for subsequent penalties? And I think there's a valid point that doesn't make a lot of sense. So DNR is comfortable with however it ends up.
Okay. So Patrick, again, I'm gonna ask, does it make sense to adopt the amendments excluding number 2
Yeah, that would work.
until we can figure out more information? And so, just so you know, within the bill, 8-738.3, the amendments from the Senate, A says a person may not operate or attempt to operate a vessel on the waters of the state while the person is prohibited from operating a vessel on the waters of the state under 8-738E3I of the subtitle, notwithstanding B1, notwithstanding any other provisions of this title, a person who violates this section is guilty of a misdemeanor, and on conviction, 1, for a first offense shall be subject to a fine not more than $1,000 or imprisonment for not more than a year. 2, for a second offense shall be subject to a fine not more than $2,000 or imprisonment for not more than 2 years or both. And 3, for a third and subsequent offense shall be subject to a fine of not more than $3,000 or imprisonment for not more than 3 years or both. I'm moving those amendments.
Second.
Any discussion on the amendments? All in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition to the amendments? The amendments are accepted. Patrick, should I hold off or should I just go ahead and move the bill as amended, even though we may amend again?
You can vote it. Yeah, that way it'll be ready for full committee.
Okay, the bill is amended.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Any clarifications? All in favor of the bill as amended signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposition? The bill moves favorable with amendments. I will double and triple checking with judiciary, but I guess a question is how I see suspension. I mean, I don't see suspension. I see offense of fees and imprisonment, but I don't see a revocation, which is a dirty word in this subcommittee, a suspension of one's boat license.
That's
Well, there is
because
no
it
vote.
doesn't exist.
I mean, not a license, excuse me. I'm not sure, how would one,
Privileges, I would say.
yes, I'm sorry, yes, sorry. Yeah, the privilege to have a boat, paid to be able to have your boat on the water. How does that apparently link up? Because I pay my fee, Dylan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that's kind of the fundamental question that this bill is trying to address. As Delegate Jacobs said, you don't get a boater's license. So if you get caught, boating under the influence, you go to court and a judge can revoke your privilege to be on the water, but to your privilege to drive a vessel. But right now, there's not really a system in place for the natural resource police officers to check whether or not that privilege has been revoked. So this bill will require the judiciary to transmit that data and require DNR to create that system so we can check it. And then that's kind of the point too that the amendments address. So right now, if this bill were to pass, you already amended it, but with the amendments, if you are caught boating when your privilege has been revoked, there will now be penalties for that as well. If that answers your question.
And I will note that the people that are burdened by this bill are DNR and judiciary, and they both supported it.
That is true. I just want to make sure we have the appropriate stick, because again, I think to the point that the loophole is now, like, I could still be on the water. I could still be on the water after potentially, without anyone really knowing, because it's not like, well, we'll get to the bottom of it, but. Any other questions? Any other thoughts folks want to be, I guess, investigated per the judiciary regarding this so that I can take down? Nope. Seeing none, can I have a motion to adjourn? We are adjourned.